All right. Hey, happy Thursday or Friday whenever I post this. One of those 2 days. We'll see which one happens first. This is going to be our introduction to Holden Caulfield, J.D. Salinger, Catcher in the Rye, and all that comes with it. There's a PowerPoint that's posted below with this presentation. I'm going to pretty much go through that. Short introduction here, more background to the book before you begin to read, and then I'll talk about the pacing. We're going to read through the book at. I can talk. Get coffee first. Talk about the pacing that we'll read through the book at, and after that, we'll talk about Holden Caulfield himself, a little bit of chapter 1, and then I'll talk to you guys on Monday. So, before we get too far into this book, I need to explain some background stuff. This book was written in a post-World War II world. Sounded weird, but I don't want to admit. And it's at the beginning of a movement called postmodernism. Now, postmodernism is one of my favorite units that I ever get to do in American literature. My favorite classes, my favorite areas to study. When I was in college, most of my classes were done in postmodernism studies. That's like it's like modern 1900 or 1940 to now is pretty much postmodernism. And here's what happened. Post World War II, the American world was very different. Because basically in 1940, when we dropped the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that flipped a switch for a lot of Americans. Because basically, that was a thing, and that happened, and the American government under Truman said that was a good thing. We've won the war. It was a necessary evil. Go home and live life now. Get married, have kids, get the house, get the car, get the dog, live your life. Everything's fine now because we won. Go America. But then a year after the bombing, a man named John Hersey wrote a book called Hiroshima, where he interviewed 6 people who were in Japan after the bomb dropped, and none of them were American. It was 5 Japanese citizens and 1 German Jesuit priest named Father Kleinsorge. And he basically had the day, these were all people who were living in Hiroshima when the bomb dropped, and he wrote this whole story about, literally, verbatim, from the eyewitnesses' perspective of not military, just average, everyday people, what happened that day. And the story became a bestseller for a lot of Americans because this was not the story that the government sold. The government sold the perception of this was needed, it needed to happen, it was only 25,000 deaths, it ended the war, stop fighting. But Hersey's book told the story of basically like it wasn't just 25,000 deaths. It was more like 125,000 deaths from the blast and radiation. It told the story of like a mother hearing her 5 children screaming under rubble from various parts of her house, and she couldn't help them. It was the story of a reverend who made it a Japanese minister who made it his new ministry to help out the single young women who were now brandished with burns and no one would marry them, and giving them a job, giving them a life to provide for them. It was this personal story, and that flipped a switch for a lot of people. It began to go, hey, you know what? I don't think this may have been the good thing the government said. Was it needed? Sure. But was it a good thing? A lot of people were like, I don't know. And a lot of people in America began to flip the switch, and this whole idea of doubt began to feed into their brains of maybe the system that I love so much isn't as good as I think it is. And Salinger writes this book in the height or in the forefront of the postmodernist movement. And so, but like, yeah, you have all these people coming home, and you have soldiers who just were not the same. they were not the same, and they were told to go home and be happy, and it wasn't there. Later during Vietnam, we would define this as being PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And being told to just go home and be happy wasn't going to be a thing to fix what a lot of young Americans saw over in the war, in the Pacific Front, in the European front. It just wasn't going to fix it by saying, okay, we won, go home, be happy. So the postmodernist is where something begins to change. Realism and modernism, the idea of just being like talking about what's real and like talking about like, just like a simple farm life. Or simple things like going to a park, it wasn't going to work anymore. That literature seemed fake, or to use Caulfield's favorite word, phony. So it's time now to then play with that normalcy. What do I mean by play? I mean here that for the postmodernists, they are all about breaking rules. And you're going to see like in the first chapter, the first paragraph of Catcher in the Rye, Salinger is not here to play by typical 1940s and 50s standards. This book is banned a lot. It's banned a lot in a lot of places because... Sorry, the bell went off. Because he is using all kinds of nasty language that would have been really hurtful for a 1940s. Like, don't use that word, it's wrong. But like in the first page, he talks about... he's talk about his brother's car. He just got a Jaguar, one of those little English jobs that can do 200 miles an hour. Cost him damn near $4,000. And even the word damn, D-A-M-N, it's not super edgy like for us in a modern society. But like for 45 when it was first published, to 1950 when it was published in 51, you did not say that word in language. You did not say that. And it's arguably the tamest of the vocabulary that Caulfield uses. So Salinger's like, I'm not here for your rules. I'm going to break your rules and talk about something else that needs to be said. I won't get into that more as we kind of unpack this book. Also, when I talk about things of play is that it listens to other voices and other perspectives. We've mentioned the past few days the idea of the unreliable narrator. Caulfield is very unreliable. We'll talk about why in a minute. He's a very unreliable narrator. We cannot trust this guy for a bunch of reasons, some legitimate and some of Caulfield's own choosings. But that's Salinger's whole point. He doesn't want you to trust this narrator. Maybe he doesn't even want you to like this narrator. Maybe you identify with him. Maybe. I don't know. But there's a lot about Caulfield that is arguably unlikable. But that's what Caulfield wants. He wants that. He wants to be unlikable. He wants this front to put up, and he's got reasons for it. But he's playing with this nature of the vocabulary, the language, and the overall prickly nature of our main character. Which brings me to one other thing that's very common in a lot of postmodernists' texts, and what's true in this book as well. This book's real bleak. I mean, it is really dark. Nothing in this book is super positive. But again, this is Caulfield's own design. Caulfield is the narrator. Everything is told like first person through him, and it's prickly. He... just to kind of give you a scope here, this is a quote from the first page. If you really want to hear about it, the first thing you'll probably want to know about where I was born, what my lousy childhood was like, and how my parents were occupied and all before they had me, and that David Copperfield kind of crap. Brief pause here. That's a reference to the Charles Dickens novel, David Copperfield, about the life and times of a young boy as he grows through his teenage years. Third line in the first sentence of the book, Caulfield says, that book's crap. It's garbage. If you want to hear that kind of crap, go read David Copperfield. And it's back to the text. But I don't feel like going into it. If you want to know the truth, in the first place, that stuff bores me. So basically, like, on that first page, Caulfield tells you directly, like, if you want to know about my childhood, I'm not going to tell you because it's boring to me. And because it's boring to me, I'm not going to tell you. But he hints that his childhood wasn't great. There's some untapped trauma there, some reasoning as to why he is the pessimistic, bleak person he is now, and he's just not going to tell you that. But he is going to joke around about it a lot. Now, again, there have been studies that we're going to talk about later on that Caulfield is definitely depressed. He has depression. He has, he sees a psychologist in the book. He is not happy. But all of these, he goes like, yeah, whatever. I don't even care. And he treats it as very flippant. It is not a flippant thing to devalue mental health, but he's going to. He's going to treat mental health and his own well-being as, yeah, whatever, like who cares? I don't care. And that's a very common trope in the postmodernists. They treat serious things very unseriously. And there's a lot in this book that he is going to just kind of flippantly pass by, including mental health, sexuality, violence, abuse. There's a lot that he kind of just glosses over and flips back, goes, whatever, as he kind of flits through his existence. So what makes him unreliable is that he's so explicit in not telling us anything. And that's the dangerous part. And dangerous is the wrong word. It's the troubling part because he's not telling us stuff. He's like explicitly leaving things out. So yeah, that's what makes him just so unreliable. But he's our narrator. He's the main voice, because I'm going to tell you the 2-week period, or the 2-3 week period of when I was expelled from school and Christmas of last year. There's your time frame. Between getting expelled and Christmas vacation, there's his timeline. That's all you're going to get. Last thing here, before I talk about your homework and what you're going to be reading. When you're looking at the vocabulary, there's a lot of interesting vocabulary. Like I said, Caulfield is an angry young man, and he does not like phonies. His big gripe in this book is phonies. He calls his brother a prostitute, and not because his brother's like, turning tricks in the corner. His brother's a prostitute because he goes, man, once upon a time, my brother DB used to live here on the East Coast, and he was a writer. And he wrote like short stories, and he struggled, and it was great. He wrote this book called like The Secret Goldfish. Oh man, it killed me. It was so good. And then he moved out to California, moved to Hollywood, and now he's a writer there. What a prostitute. So basically his whole thing is like, Caulfield views his brother as a sellout, because he went to California to write movies. He goes, I hate movies. Movies are stupid. And he writes movies, so he's stupid. So his brother was cool when he was a struggling artist, working to, making ends meet, living in a cruddy apartment in the worst part of New York. Man, that's real. But then he sold out, buys a Jaguar, makes $4,000. The Jaguar costs $4,000. So stupid. Now he's a prostitute. So it's really like his worldview is, if he is unsatisfied by something, that thing is fake. It's a fake. It's a phony. It's hashtag fake news. Stupid, pop culture terminology from like last year or so. And he is very clear on, there are 2 ways to view the world. There's my way to view the world, and everyone else's, and everyone else is inherently wrong. Ta-da. So that's what we're kind of bridging with today in the first few chapters, is how Caulfield views the world. And he's very, 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 very clear in, if you are not on board with my worldview, you're the problem. You're the phony. You're the prostitute. You're the crummy, no good, laid back, blah, 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 blah. So yeah. Sorry, I meant to talk about this earlier and I totally forgot. Every quote I've said so far is from page 1. The whole quote about him being institutionalized, the quote about it's all going to take place under the 3 weeks after I got expelled. My brother's a prostitute. He's a sellout. That's all on page 1. I've spoiled nothing for you. But again, here's what I want you to focus on for your homework. For Monday, you're going to read 2 chapters in Catch from the Rye. Chapters 1 and 2. Now, I'm posting online the full PDF version of this text. If you have your own version, I have my own version that I have my, where'd it go here? I have my highlighted notes in. I have a page stuck. Terribly boring to watch. I have my highlighted notes in here. So I have my copy that I'm writing stuff in. If you have one of those, great. You clearly can't turn it into the school here because it's closed. But if you have a copy at home that you can use, great. If you want to buy one on Amazon or Barnes & Noble online, great. But again, I've given you one for free. It's all fine. But you're going to read chapters 1 and 2 for Monday. So you have all weekend to read 2 chapters, and there will be a quiz posted on Monday to do on Classroom. So, you log on, you fill it out, you answer the question, and then call it a day. So again, that homework will be posted below here, or I guess up there above as well. So, sorry, this got long. I 22 minutes. I intended for this to be more closer to 10 minutes. And then I just got to talking about Caulfield and postmodernism and everything that is here. Maybe we'll edit stuff out. I don't know. We'll see. So yeah, read chapters 1 and 2 for Monday. Take the quiz on Monday. And then I'll post something else on Tuesday for what to do at that point after that. Okay. Nothing too hard, I don't think. I'm trying to keep things light and breezy for you guys. It's an easy read. It's a quick read, and it's fun to talk about. Like I said, I think it was the B5. This is one of those books. It's one of these books like this book and Great Gatsby. I love to talk about it because I hate it so much. This book infuriates me, but that's what makes better conversations. If you are annoyed by a book, it's easier to talk about. If you love a book, it's easy to talk about it. It's only when you feel nothing about it that's really makes it hard to talk about. And the thing about this book is it's really hard to feel nothing for this book. Caulfield is so derisive. You either love him or you hate him. It's very hard to feel nothing about him. Like watching him flirt with 30-year-old tourists because he wants to sleep with them. That shouldn't make you feel nothing. It shouldn't be whatever. He's trying, that is a thing that happens in the book, by the way. True story. He tries to flirt with these 3 30-year-old women because he wants to sleep with them. That should set you off one of 2 ways. Either dude's a savage, legend, or dude's gross, stop, what's wrong with you? So yeah, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. Lord, was a long story. So read the book 1 and 2 for Monday, quiz on Monday. See you later. Bye.